we're going to look at the idea of tables and graphs in terms of data collection. So data has been collected but not yet rearranged. We usually call that raw data or ungrouped data, original data set. But that's not usually where we do interpretations and do statistical analysis. We take that information and we actually do something with it. So generally the first step that we often see done is creating a table. So it's the most basic method of presenting numerical data. It should definitely, if you're producing one, include a title, category labels, and definitely making sure you include appropriate units. So let's look at an example of data put into a table format. So here's our example. It's in obviously table format. It's cigarette consumption in the United States from 1915 to 2005 per capita among persons 18 years or older. So we have our year and we have our cigarette consumption. So this is a per capita idea. So per capita in general just means for each person or individually. So these are basically average cigarette consumptions per capita, so per individual. So per capita, let's write in that that means for each person. Or individual. The next question asking us what was the percent increase in the consumption of cigarettes from 1935 to 1985. So in general, whenever you're looking at data in a table format, you should be able to pull information off and maybe use that information in further formulas. So percent change formula in general is given in our resource sheet. So if we pull up our resource sheet, percent change, so that would include increase or decrease, is your final minus your initial divided by your initial and multiplied by 100. So we're going to be substituting into this formula to find percent change. So our formula is percent change is final minus initial divided by what it used to be or initially multiplied by 100. So we would like to know from 1935, so that would be our initial, and 1985 will be our final. So 1985 we have 3,461. In 1935 we had 1,564. And we're dividing by what it used to be our initial, so that would be 1935. So again, 1,564. And then we're going to multiply that by 100 to get it in percent form. So when you plug that into your calculator, I end up getting 121.29, etc. So I'm just going to round that to the nearest percent. So I get approximately 121% increase. So what that means, remember, it's just relative to what it used to be. So in 1935, on average, per person, we were having 1,564, and that increased to 3,461, and that's relative to what it used to be. So always make sure that you're thinking about that. So it's okay to have a percentage that's over 100% because you're doing it 100 plus some fold when you make that change. 3 is asking us what is the percent decrease in cigarette consumption from 1965 to 2005. So we can use the same formula. So percent change is final minus initial over initial multiplied by 100. So my final was in 2005, which from our table would be 1,716. And we'd like to compare that to what was in 1965, which was 4,259. Divided by what it used to be, same number, 4,259, multiplied by 100 to get it into percentage form. So when you notice when you put this into your calculator, you end up getting a negative number coming out. So I ended up getting negative 59.7%. So notice the negative only happens because you were taking a smaller number minus a bigger number, and that's what's showing sort of that decreased value. So you can either leave it in this form, or you can say it's approximately 59.7% decrease. So it looks like we had a substantial increase, we had a substantial decrease for what's happening in the chart. So for number 4, if it's asking us what is the overall trend in cigarette consumption from 1915 to 2005, we already could see that there's some calculations of an increase, calculations of a decrease. If we sort of look at our numbers, we can see that we're pretty low. We start to increase. We hit our peak, and then we start to decrease. So we have sort of a fluctuating. So overall, we have increased. From start to finish, we have increased our cigarette consumption, but we seem to have this trend of an increase, then a decrease happening. So we have fluctuations. So we have a steady increase and then a steady decrease. So increase and then decrease. If you want to say overall increase. And again, we can look at the numerical values and sort of think about what that trend's happening in that fluctuation or what's going on. But it's a lot actually easier if we took this information in table format and we put it into a graphical form, which is down on the next sheet here. It's a lot easier to see that trend, right? So we're seeing this increasing trend, we're seeing this decreasing trend, similar rates happening, and we can see that overall we have an increase at the very end. But we can see that sort of whole picture. So again, the same data presented 2 different ways. You can either look at a table format, you can look at the graphical format. And again, we should be able to pull information off of both types.